Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul Sims speaking to you from London, UK. I apologize for a little bit of a technical issue just in that last minute there. My name is Paul Sims, as I say. I'm in charge of inpatient health, and I am very excited that you can be with us today. Today's webinar, as you can see from your screen, is called What Big Pharma Must Learn from Unicorns in 2021. This has been a really popular webinar. I'm really excited that we've got more than 1,000 people registered for this session, and I'm eager to get things going as quickly as possible. But just a quick word before we get into introducing the panelists that we've got with us today. Firstly, just why? Why is this an important topic that we're focusing on at the moment? I mean, we often talk about startups. We've been talking about agility for many, many years now. But why is this coming to the fore? I think it's because we're actually facing a very uncertain future at the moment. Startups, of course, have always faced uncertainty by their very nature. We don't know what their market and their product reception is going to be like. But the rest of us are really facing, if anything is certain over the next few years, I think it's this, it's uncertainty. And agility and other iterative methods are really designed for uncertain environments and working with limited resources, but in a very successful way. Our pandemic, of course, has been a huge catalyst here. And if there's anything that we can say, it's that conquering the health side of things is something that we've perhaps started to do, but it's absolutely still a critical problem across many parts of the world. And even once we've solved the health problems, there's going to be, of course, economic and even political storms to weather in the future. So all of us, not just startups, are facing uncertainty ahead. But today, of course, we are blessed. We're blessed with the ability to easily track and measure every single marketing initiative that we do. So theoretically, we have no excuses. We should be able to learn and to pivot in real time. But are we perhaps still focused on traditional metrics? Are we perhaps focused on what, of course, we call vanity metrics and all of the feel-good things like revenues and sale targets and hits and impressions and views, metrics which make us feel very good? Let me tell you a quick story. I was actually invited to speak at a pharma company earlier this year. And in that talk, I ended up talking a little bit about this same topic. And I had plenty of positive feedback afterwards, but I was told by one senior member of the team that I was simply unrealistic, that it was impossible that any single pharmaceutical company could deprioritize some of the metrics that we've been so accustomed to using in the past. So it's true, despite everything that we know, despite the theory that we all subscribe to, it's very difficult to change what we do in pharma. Now, all agile processes, of course, use some form of build, measure, learn loop within them, an iterative process. And it's really this learning part that historically we've been so difficult in actually bridging. And a few of you will have seen that I sent an article around just yesterday, just to whet your appetite on this topic. And you will have seen a diagram that I put in there that looks a little bit like this. What I didn't explain is that this diagram was something, well, the article, in fact, was kind of a rehash of something I wrote back in 2018. So that's over 3 years ago. And this particular diagram actually came from Eric Ries's book, The Lean Startup, which was published in 2011. So for more than a decade, we've had the theory and we've understood what was going on, at least certain parts of our industry have. And as usual, pharma's a little late to the game, but at least I think we should bask in the reality that some people have now gone there before us. And we, of course, can learn from their experiences. So it's not all bad. We don't have to be the first mover in every situation. And indeed, what I hope to illustrate today is indeed exactly that. It's what we've learned. It's what we've learned from seeing what unicorns have done, from our previous experiences within pharma. And of course, I'm extremely pleased to say that it's not just me doing the talking today. I'm going to be joined with some wonderful people. So let me introduce them to you quickly now. Just a quick word, of course, is that all of them are going to be talking from their own personal perspectives and not necessarily that of their companies. So Haida, top left, Many of you may be familiar with Haider already. I personally think he is possibly the most entrepreneurial person I know in pharma. He has been working in digital now for nearly 10 years at Pharma, experience of global head of digital for Gideon Rector and now Ferring, of course. He is highly focused on technology innovation and customer experience. And he's also an investor, a creator of many organizations. He runs Allegory Capital for the last 4 years, which is a VC fund investing in daring entrepreneurs. And it's put him, of course, in a very good position for today. So Haider, thank you so much for joining us. On the right-hand side, you will see Erasmus, another good friend of mine. He is currently the Chief Marketing Officer in the Nordic region of MSD, where he has recently taken on responsibility also for the oncology portfolio. He has more than 15 years of experience in marketing digital sales, an expert in lead generation and brand building, and he's actually worked for high-tech industries and began his career in fashion design, believe it or not, only recently, shall we say, in pharma. So a great deal of experience in agile methodologies, also recently started a social enterprise with his wife, which is raising funds for vaccinations in developing countries in response to the current pandemic. So I think that shows the kind of mindset and character that we have. Thank you so much, Erasmus, for being here today. And then let me introduce Mistral. Mistral is the Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer at Viseven. And I want to just indicate that Viseven have been a partner on producing today's webinar, and indeed, without them, this webinar would not be happening. They've been a great partner to work with, absolutely fantastic that we've managed to get to where we are with the attendees that we've got, and of course, really appreciate what Mistral is going to share with us very shortly. She herself has a lot of experience in dealing with marketing and innovation in digital, was actually CEO of a consultancy where she focused on agility by guiding organizations to implement more sustainable strategies and tactics and federate teams around integrated solutions that permit agility with ethics and effectiveness. So I hope you agree with me. This panel couldn't really be much better than it is. And actually, the first thing I'm going to do is invite Mistral to show her video and to take us through a few slides, which I think will set the scene even further than I have done today. So Mistral, over to you.
Hi guys, hi teams. Thank you so much, Paul, to invite us and to be so smart in preparing this webinar. So hi guys, I'm Mistral, I am from France, so please don't take care about my French accents. We all know that French speakers are really not good at English, so sorry for that. And I'm going right now to try to teach you or to bring you some information about what we think about this topic from our standpoint as digital evangelists. So let me share my screen. So I hope you guys can see my screen in a few seconds.
Oh, there we go.
Here.
Very nice. Okay.
Tell me,
yep.
Is it okay? Or it's not the correct screen, right?
It's perfect.
We can see my face and...
Yep.
Okay, great. So perfect, guys. Thank you so much to be here. I'm going to really quickly introduce myself. I'm Mistral from France, living in Normandy, thanks to the COVID, I would say. Now, in my previous experience, I was a teacher about new technology and how to use it for proper communication and information in marketing and communication. And after a while, I decided to join Pharma, and 12 years ago, I landed into my first job as a digital lead, digital evangelist for ABOT. And since that time, I went from a marathon to another, just trying to do all my best to drive those big transformation into the industry, and especially about digital, about agility, and about compliance and transparency. So what are my key learnings about the situation right now in the industry? You know, when I have a problem, which is in a personal or professional side, I used to go for what I call serious games. So I generally find a solution by playing with my teammates and trying to find solution in the best way. And my favorite game for that is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And in this situation, we have 3 jokers. One is the 50-50, the second is the audience, and the third is called to a friend. My problem with this game is that in the real life, there is no guru that is going to kill just half of the potential solution to a problem, except if you are given a lot of money for having this solution. So that's why it's not really the best solution. When you go for asking the rest of the people, the audience, generally it makes sense. But when we're speaking about startup and about innovation and how we change things, mainly the solution is in the disruptive places. So that's why it's not a really good option. So I used to go for the third option. And to find a solution, I used to call a friend. My problem is that I don't have the phone of Elon Musk. So today I'm calling friends, Aider, Erasmus, and Paul to speak about this matter. And we hope that all together we are giving you and providing solution. But first, let me call a very old friend that you all know. It's our beloved Einstein. And if we are asking him if he have any idea to solve our problem, then he used to answer, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem and my life depending on solution, I would spend 55 minutes to determine the proper question. So this means that he would take just 5 minutes to create the solution, but 55 minutes thinking about the problem. And if we think about the problem today, about what we're speaking right now, let me please go back to the origin and speak about monkeys.
A scientist placed 4 monkeys in a room with a stepladder upon which there was a bunch of bananas. Whenever a monkey went to climb the ladder, the other monkeys in the room were sprayed with cold water. After a while, each time a monkey went for the bananas, the others would attack it to prevent it from doing so. The monkeys learnt to never climb the ladder. But then, one of the monkeys was removed, and a new monkey wearing a raincoat was introduced. Naturally, this monkey went for the bananas, and it was customarily attacked and prevented from doing so by the others. This new monkey learnt not to climb the ladder. So when another monkey was substituted in and made for the bananas, all the others attacked it, including the one in the raincoat, despite the fact that it had never been sprayed with cold water. A third monkey was substituted in, and then a 4th final monkey. And still, whenever a monkey tried to climb the ladder, the others would prevent it from doing so, even though none of them had ever been sprayed with the cold water. When asked why this was, one monkey said, "That's just the way it is."
So here I want to thank you, one of our friends, Philippe Hardy, that make us the possibility to reuse his video. Thank you, Guy. And this is just to explain what is for me the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is conformity. And we've seen on this video that social conformity is something that is really a problem in change management. Then how can we solve the problem? Just by helping people think outside of the box. And here again, if we go back to our old friend Einstein, and I will tell you a quick story. So one day, his assistant was asking him, because she says that he was providing exactly the same exam to his student that the previous year. And when she asked why, then Einstein said, let me look, you're right. Those are exactly the same questions as last year, but this year the answer has changed. So this means that yes, for sure, we know that conformity, complexity, slowing processes, slowing changes, it's something that are a problem that we know for a while now, and we have always the same question again and again. But however, now the answer has changed. COVID, as Paul was telling, but also digitalization and the learning from the startups. And what is our answer to these changes? So by understanding what exactly the pharma was requesting and the pain point they were facing, then we have all agreed that governance was the most important things to take in consideration, because a good governance leads to excellent marketing operation. However, it's not enough. And from the learning we had from the past years, we have understood that technology can be break down into different other milestones, which are pieces, pattern, and places that we are using in our way of solving problem that leads not only to excellent marketing, but to brand content, best brand content experiences. This is just one of the methodology that are existing today on the market. But however, what we think is that it's better to have a good framework than a good recipe. So when we have a good framework and a good solution that is really simple to understand, then everyone can go do it and get the result of it. And we used to say that for us, creating a solution is, or putting in place a program, a project, a factory, it's always the same. It's like building a building of 5 floors. This means that we have 5 steps. The first step is initiating, the second step is ideation, the third is incubating, the fourth is industrializing, and the last is inspecting. And for each of the phases, we are always taking in consideration those 5 P of the governance. And for sure, a building needs to have foundation, and our foundation are always adoption driven, because if there is no adoption of the changes of the solution, then there is nothing, because no one is using. And also technology transparency and being agnostic, because today there is so much technology in the market that if we are not fully transparent with what we are going to do to build with the data, then that it makes no sense. And by doing this, we understand that finally today technology and process is not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is people. And to solve the problem of people, we have what we call our CLM, or customer liaison manager, our superman that is, or superwoman that is going to lead this change, which is a real change agent that will educate people and help people doing differently. It's a unique single point of contact with any brand or product manager, and by the collaboration between them during especially the initiation of the project, they can work and go for tactics, objective, and format, and then deliver all the rest of the process really easily. And in the middle, everything is automated by technology and processes. So it's not a question of them doing anymore, it's a question of the machine doing. It reminds that finally for all brand manager and people that need to manage this, it becomes agile, because we are killing complexity. And instead of having a very long, complex process as before, we are just going for a simple 5-step process. Again, what we were telling is, if we want to go for efficiency, what is the most important is to begin to think about people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mistral. That was a very nice journey through that. And I'd love to see if Heider and Erasmus want to comment on anything they saw. But just before they talk, I think it's time to get you in our audience involved, if that's okay. So if you look at your screen right now, I'm going to actually launch a poll question. And in fact, you should see 2 questions, one on top of the other. And I would love to get your answers. So the first one is, how would you best describe your company's capabilities when it comes to working with Agile? Obviously, I appreciate not all of you will be as wonderful as Mistral and her explanation just there at the end of her slides, but I'd love to see how you would rate yourself currently. So I'll just give you a few minutes. Extremely capable at the top and poor towards the bottom. And then there's a second question, which I'm afraid you're going to hate me for, because I'm sure you would love to tick every single box on question number 2, but I'm going to force you to choose only one. So which of the following statements do you think best describes a non-agile company in life sciences? And I've given you 6 options there to choose from. So very interested in how you would define yourself non-agility as opposed to where we want to get to. So while you're answering that, and I'll give you a few more seconds, Erasmus Heider, do you have any comments to make on what you heard from Mistral, or how you see things from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, that was a good introduction to one part of the equation, which is people. What I see is usually you cannot give a Trello or Asana tool in the hand of someone and expect him to just adopt it and become agile suddenly. I think that cultural aspect is key. And it comes at every day is an option to basically fight waste and try to be lean in the way we deliver value to our organizations. So I think I'll start by really emphasizing that people and culture is quite important for managing this.
Yeah, so and maybe just reflecting a little bit on the question and the poll questions as well, that agility is many things for us as well here, and I think in pharma, what I've done on me as well, because one thing is business agility. Are we responding quickly to clients' needs, like Pfizer with the vaccine, like Dyson, and quickly during COVID, went out and did in 10 days invented a ventilator. Or we're talking about organizational agility. So what we're talking about a lot here is the teams and how you organize within and the people. Just wanted to make that distinction clear, because one doesn't mean the other. Just because you have agile teams, I experienced a lot, doesn't mean that the whole organization becomes agile and quickly adopts. Then doesn't become a Dyson, it doesn't become a Pfizer overnight in that way. That requires something else, but it's a step at least. And can you have one without the other? Definitely.
Very interesting. Okay, thank you for making those points. I can see that about 3/4 of you have voted in the poll, and I can see that a few people are having issues. I think you might need to answer both questions before you can submit your answers in case you're having any issues. I'll hold that open for 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much to everybody who voted. Let's have a look at the results. So what we have here is a bit of a normal distribution, I would say, on the first question. So desired is nearly 30% of the group, with 1/4 of you on okay. So clearly punching towards the middle there, only 8% of you saying poor, and 8% also of you saying extremely capable. So that's very interesting. And on the second question, I was actually very intrigued by this. I can see we've got a bit of a spread, but the first one is definitely the winner, a company that takes a long time to make decisions. That's how we define non-agility. Personally, I would not use that definition. Personally, I'd be very interested to see what our panel thinks. I think that the real capability that we're trying to achieve in agility is that learning, that build, measure, learn loop that I showed at the beginning. Very interested to hear if the panel would disagree with me on that, because I think that perhaps getting our definitions right and being able to focus on the same sort of thing here is actually quite important. Heidi, you were the one that actually proposed this question. Any thoughts?
Yeah. So no, I think I can find myself in with a public vote here, because when you have tons of steering committee and you want to change and you want to introduce a new level of maturity in your company, whatever the, if you're in medical, sales, marketing, R&D, your agility can be destroyed by the layers of decision-making processes. And I think that's a daily life that some of us in the industry can face. Now, that said, when you ask me how can we turn that around, then I come to you, because if you create that learning agility and a growth mindset for each employee, then things start to change culturally. But I think the first reaction when you open the door and you come and you say, yeah, I have to pass through, I don't know how many gates just to get a project approved, that, just ask yourself why Amazon has 0 steering committees, and then, the tech company might teach us a thing or two. Yeah.
Mr. Erasmus, any comments?
Yeah, from my side, I just want to say that decision is really one of the key factor of the success here. So those two pyramids that you are sharing are really important. So pyramids are key also. We can see a pyramid in different way, but if you make a circle at the basis of the pyramid and you look it from the top, what you are going to see is a circle, okay? So, and for me, decentralization of the decision from the center to the extent of the center is the key of the process of agilization. So making people responsible of and accountable of what they are doing is really important. The problem here is that most of the decision makers are afraid to do that because they are afraid to lose control. And generally, they are afraid to lose control when there is stake behind. So when there is punishment, when there is something that could be really risky for them. So that's why killing the risk, it's also something really important, and make them understand that they can trust their people. So again, we go back to people and to learning, making them learn that they can trust their people. Then this will agilize the system too.
Yeah, so I think Mistral has the solution. I think one of the problems that I can just maybe highlight is, I guess, the customer's understanding. You want to do agile because you want to learn what the customer needs. And we probably always say it's customer first. We're a customer first organization. I think it's often experience as a customer eventually that we have guidelines they want to communicate about. We have messaging, communication, we want to get things out there. We have an agenda and we push it to our audience, our customers. We need to understand and learn. That's maybe back to your point, Paul, about learning. We need to learn constantly and faster. That would be an agile organization for me. And then we need to remove the barriers that Mistral is talking about in order to be execution. Because what I'm learning right now is that it's the execution part that's holding up. If you're putting great people into place, giving them the tools, but you still have the boundaries and the risk and the fear, then things fall apart. You get better to the customers, but then you are frustrated about not being able to get the things and support the customers because we have, as a life science industry, made all these boundaries for ourselves. And of course, others have made them as well, but we can operate within those boundaries better, I think.
Yeah, I can't quite see anyone using customer eventually as their mantra there. So thank you, Erasmus. It
hasn't hit home yet. No, it hasn't hit home.
Well, listen, you guys are actually coming onto this topic of basically why can't we do better? I mean, Mistral has shown us how we can do it. We've been talking about it, as I say, for a decade. In our industry, we've certainly been talking about it for close to half a decade. And we've heard a few examples there, the trust from senior leadership, as Mistral said, the ability to make mistakes even as being something which we need to be able to do. Let's see again what the audience thinks, I think. So again, look at your screens and you will see a new question come up. Just 1 second, come on. Barriers, okay, have a look. Generally, what do you believe are the greatest barriers preventing adoption of agile methods in the current climate? So I've given you quite a few different options there, everything from awareness of the need for agility or the mindset, and awareness of actually what is within an agile mindset, a rigid organizational structure, or the dictatorial management, if you like, a lack of sufficient skills or motivation in internal teams, that the company's simply got a poor legacy capability in digital and needs to catch up, poor quality third-party solutions available in this domain. So hopefully no one still says that after they've just seen what Mistral shared, but it's still an option. Unable to improve investment case or a lack of senior level support, and then of course, the external environment, regulations, etc., not allowing agility to thrive. Or finally, there are no real barriers. You don't believe there are, and perhaps you're executing very successfully within your own organization. So roughly half of you have voted so far. I'm going to hold that open for another few seconds. Let's get those votes in, please. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone. So here are the results. Okay, it's the rigid organizational structure or dictatorial management. I'm not sure if that's exactly the same as what you just described, Mistral, a second ago, but certainly people feel locked into what they can and can't do. That certainly appears true. I'm actually not surprised that that one has garnered a full third of the votes. 20% is down to awareness, apparently, and then obviously smaller numbers. You'll be pleased to know, Mistral, that nobody said poor quality third-party solutions. Perhaps you've got rid of that excuse now. Yeah, interesting. That's what the audience thinks. It's a wide range, but there's clearly a bit of polarization there. Are you guys surprised? Erasmus, Heide, is this how you feel? I mean, you guys are in positions of responsibility. You've been doing this for a while. You've managed to work out what works and what doesn't within your organizations, but are you still facing pressure? Have you unlocked that? If you've unlocked it, tell us how.
No, but if I can just get a quick one, because I think someone, Ned, in the chat also kind of makes my point that it's our perception of external requirements that are a little bit the problem. So it's our perception, and because I think the external requirements doesn't mean that we have to be as rigid as we have become. We just have become so rigid because of fear that we make some mistakes. So I think we need to change the perception of what's working in the market. But I think it's also our job, at least from a marketing perspective, to really show that what we're doing is the right thing. We're trying to do something that actually has value. We're trying to improve value for our customers. We're not trying to go out and hard sell drugs to people, which is what maybe we made some mistakes in the 90s and how we had the model back there. But we're trying to change that model. We're trying to learn from the customer, provide something of value. But that has not, has not gone through the whole organization yet. And then we have this perception that if we mess up, we will have huge fines, and there will be a lot of risk, and so we make rigid organization. So there is, yes, the understanding of the external environments, but there's also an internal thing where we have to look at our own internal communication around what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve. It has to be well understood, and there are a lot of details in this modern way of communicating that I don't think the whole organization understands yet.
Yeah. And Axel has actually added that perhaps I should have pointed fear as a specific item to choose from in the list, which perhaps underlines even further what you're saying. It's this perception of fear, whether it's real or not. Obviously, we're a safety-first conservative industry, but we have to be able to experiment a little bit more. How do we overcome this, though? I don't feel like I've yet heard any solutions here. Heide.
I think if you work in a digital setting, like I have with Faring, the first thing you see, we take like 9 months to just launch a 20-page document, just to have a medical legal review process that's sustainable for 50 countries. And if you do marketing like this, that's not the definition of HR, right? It's a bit, where if I am working for Spotify or Netflix, I will do one page or two, A/B test it, learn, send it on 25% of my email database, learn from my email database, and then re-optimize it and send it on the next 25% segment. So that culture of iteration is hard to penetrate, because sometimes, as you said, Erasmus, we are touted by our vendors as well. So sometimes we see, I'll give you another example, a big program to do a disease awareness website. I'll just give concrete example for the audience to see it. And you see those programs sometimes cost $500,000 because it's heavy. Everyone, wants to put a lot of content on it, and no one reads it at the end of the day. So this is where, when I come and say, oh, hold on, we are killing that project. We are doing one landing page, just one page, and we will launch it next week. So how does it sound? And that culture of just almost hacking, the department. Sometimes people see me like the hacker, coming in the marketing department or medical department, just doing it quick and dirty. It's not because we want to do it fast and quick and dirty that it is not compliant. It's just that we want to learn from the reality. And another last example, if you want to do a new key message for a new drug that you are about to launch, and you have the marketing authorization, everything is on the green. Usually you will test your message in a white room, doing market testing. It costs a dozen of cases of errors, takes a while to get the feedback. Yeah, why not running programmatic advertising on HCP portals and just learn immediately which is the best combination of creative and ads that resonates for your brand? So you see, so it's just a question of sometimes also, unfortunately, these people who are not exposed into that just don't know. So, and they just trust vendors to tell them. And if you are vendors, I'm not complaining against my partners out there. if there is some billable to do, you do it, right? So it's just also that extra mile to say, hold on a second, there is a different way to do it. And I think that is a response to the joint responsibility from people from within, like me and Erasmus, and people from outside, like you, Mistral, that jointly we can say, yeah, there is another way, and let's explore it. And
that's the other breed of unicorns. That's the other unicorn. We talk about unicorn mentality, but I also talk about internally is about the unicorn marketeer, the unicorn people that we're trying to bring in. They're also bred and they also exist, and they're the one we need in order to make, have those conversations and bring that outside perspective in as well, and another perspective to pharma. They can be, you can lose them as well because of the complexity and the rich structure. But if you have them, they can really make a difference. And talk about even just, as you mentioned, programmatic advertising that not many has probably done.
Well, perhaps that's why 21% of our perhaps that's why 21% of our audience said education in the last question. I'm enjoying Mistral's little mini whiteboard here. What are you?
Sorry for my writing. I'm just really happy that Ader said that compliance do not mean conformity. And this is what I wanted to share in my presentation, is that today we have a lot of people that are doing conformity instead of being compliant. Being compliant to a system do not mean that we need to apply rules without thinking. And I think that if we want to make people change, then we need to incubate, and incubate is also incubate. So we can incubate ideas, we can incubate projects like a proof of concept, but we need to incubate also the knowledge. And for this, what we need to do is inside out or outside in, as we were talking before. This means that those people that are not knowledgeable about, we need to increase the circle of what they know and what they used to do, and maybe by putting some people and making infusion of knowledge, and then changing them into green, so they will be able to understand that they can be compliant by doing quick and dirty. I really love what Ader was telling, and I think this is the way we can change, by giving the example. Taking, for example, 1 or 2 teams inside the system that are already mature or ready for, and when they're and begin the story with them, incubate with them, show that it is possible to be compliant and going fast. And when they made the proof, then diffuse and cross-fertilize all the organization.
And there is something that we can add on the difference between the tech scene. We talked about unicorns, right? And the fact that they reached their status for some reason. When I say quick and dirty, and it's not reaching, the golden rule, it doesn't mean that you cannot innovate and try to, because sometimes you fall into a gray area. While if I was a tech startup and no one has put a bill to tell me what to do with that data, I will not ask for permission, but then ask for excuses later. I'll say, I'll comply with whatever framework for, that was basically Facebook, Google, Amazon 10 years ago. In pharma, we can't do that. I mean, we have a code, we have many codes that are vague enough to give us a framework. And if you stumble upon those uncertainties because it's quite gray, for example, you want to launch a hyperledger blockchain to manage data privacy, you don't have a code for that, right? You can just call them. Many times with my legal officer, my chief legal officer, chief compliance officer, I would just say, let's call the EMEA, Swissmedic, the NHS. Let's just call them. Let's see if they have stumbled upon the problem and they give us a position paper, or they give us like their opinion, and we say, interesting. So it's doable. Oh yeah, okay. So let's do with it. And the last point I wanted to stumble upon what you said, Erasmus, is like when you have a doctor and you want to identify, if they are innovators, laggers. Internally, you have medical and marketing people that are a little bit more innovative than others. And if you start doing stuff with them and championing them for capability, suddenly you have a whole department doing it because it becomes a norm. But I think it's also part of what I call myself a change agent within the organization. I'm like creating a messy environment around me to provoke the conversation. I need those champions around me so that they are representative of what the new norm looks like. Yeah.
Great. Guys, time flies when we're having fun. I can see Mestral already has a new diagram. You're very good at this. You remind me of Steve Jobs. He loved a good whiteboard. This is the modern equivalent while we're talking on Zoom. We're getting some great audience questions in. We've only got 15 minutes left, though, so if you haven't asked a question, please do make use of the chat or the Q&A box. As you can see, some people are. Don't be afraid. There's no fear here. Come on, let's be agile. So let me just read out a few things that I don't think that we have addressed, but we probably should. By the way, thank you to Erasmus. You can see you've been answering some of the questions via text, which is very, very nice. Gail Hall asks, you give the example, and she's referring to Haider, I think, you give the example of iterative steps to launch parts instead of a whole big website in one go. How do you ensure that you then maintain momentum and don't make a false start or lose sight of the end picture, which was initially, of course, a big website? And to be honest with you, I've encountered this myself. I've been an entrepreneur myself, and sometimes agility takes you off into a completely new place that you were not expecting. And how do you maintain your initial enthusiasm when the idea has, of course, changed so much? So very curious as to your answers there. I'd also like to go to Samuel's point, where he was addressing Mistral's point about decentralization. It almost implies that everybody is an entrepreneur. That sounds very nice, of course, but in big companies, only a small portion, Samuel writes 10%, might actually have that entrepreneur mindset. So the rest doesn't want to go the extra mile, and why would they? So how, and should we be trying to change that? Should we be trying to increase beyond 10%, or should we be trying to let that 10% be more prominent and lead initiatives and be more experimental? So curious as to your answers on both those points. Who wants to go first?
I can take the. I'll go for it, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. So first question, let me just tell my experience here. I think, again, I will put people in the middle. Sorry for that, but it is really important. I think that momentum is not a question of what we deliver. Momentum is a question of what we can celebrate all together. And if you have a team that is fully onboarded, that know where they are going, that they are preparing a journey, for example, to climb the Himalaya, but they know that to climb the Himalaya, they need first to climb the hill that is just up to the street, and then go for a French mountain, and then after go to the Himalaya, breaking down the different objectives. Then you can maintain this wish to all together celebrate each pieces, each path through the success. And this is really important. And here I will bring you to some very interesting learning from the ex-CEO from LinkedIn. He was speaking about compassionate management. And I will really recommend you to go for his learning, because there is a lot to understand on how we manage a team to make them always happy to deliver each daily routine. So for me, this is the answer to this question is keep your team celebrating each day. This is the way you will have always success. And for the second question, for me, it's not only about, let's say, mindset of the top 10. It's and I will join this question to one that is below, which is about middle management, is how we can flatten and not waiting 3 months to speak to N+2, C+2, C-2. So how we can speed up the feedback loop inside the company, flatten the communication. So again, my answer here is, and he's again the team, the management of the team. Instead of being a manager, becoming a facilitator that will make this circulation of the information. Then instead of having 10% of people that have this mindset, they will take example, and you will infuse, and you will have little by little 20, 30, 40, and why not 100% of your team that will become agile mindset.
Great answer. Thank you very much. I think that was really comprehensive, and we can learn a lot from that. I do want to hear from Erasmus and Haider on the same topic, but either or both questions, please.
So yeah, for me, it was I wanted to answer the question on that scalability and pivoting, not pivoting. How to create like a systemic enthusiasm when you start changing. So the problem, I see a lot of death by pilot effect. So a lot of pilots that are like innovative, like, like a lot of firsts. I've seen a lot of firsts that are literally dying because they are politically charged, that are too much charged because on the other hand, when you have the CEO, for example, backing up the project, it's an unkillable project, and it can take up resources locally because you have a limited amount of resources to basically do the rest of the job. So I'm always asking, can we adopt? That's one of my criterion. Can we adopt easily and adopt greatly a capability, a project, a website? Can we actually make use of it? Second is scalability, and if you see, this is something that comes from the tech world, an unscalable pipeline funnel. If you cannot go from 1 customer to 100 customer to 10,000 customer, that makes it not so sexy type of venture. So I'm always looking at, can I go from 1 country to 10 country? And if not, why? And I'm trying to understand the barriers, like coming back to the barriers. And the last piece is a killability KPI. Can I take off the switch, and why I will be in a position to actually kill the project? And it happens to me when people thought I was crazy. We worked with a startup, and the only viable option was to scale it to the US. And if my US team was saying no, that means it's the end of the pilot. In a normal pharma, I would have said, let's scale it elsewhere and just do it from global. But to make sure that we have actually this agile mindset, I prefer to go through a different model of engagement, which was a regional model instead of a global model. So that kind of is up to you to put your criterion for success, but to stick with it is important. Yeah.
Cool. Erasmus, I'd love to hear from you too, but what I'm also going to do, I can see we've only got 9 minutes left, and I want to just ask a couple more of these poll questions in the background, because I think it's kind of original information. We've got a good audience size, so might as well gather some opinions and some insights while we're talking. So you'll see I've actually got 3 polls which I might show ready and waiting. So feel free to answer those in the background. Erasmus, over to you in the meantime.
Yeah, no. So if we take the example of the website, I'm inspired by that question as well. That we're trying to do that right now. But if you're considering agile and you're afraid that will something be missed perhaps because if you have a big website, I think that was your original comment hider, and then how do you then lose sight of this big website because you break into chunks? But that's exactly the point. And at least if you try to do agile, then at least do it for the transparency of work. Because how transparent? Maybe ask yourself and your teams, do you have really transparency of work going on right now? Do you understand what everybody's doing when you're trying to build a website? Your agency, your internal teams, your medical reviewers, all those people. Do you have transparency of how things at work is flowing and where's the barriers? Where does things lie? Or are you 2 years of developing a website? Or do you rather like launch some things a little bit fast, get some feedback, learn from that, and using maybe some tools to learn how people navigate and what you probably maybe you make a chatbot and nobody wants to use the chatbot, which is probably going to be my suggestion or my thought. And then you drop it and you do something else. So there's no reason when I talk about agile that you shouldn't try it out, and you can have many different iterations. Someone also asked about Kanban. We have Kanban for some team, which is transparency of work and work capacity and so on. We have Scrum teams as well. It depends on where you're sitting, and we do it for marketing and commercial, but IT is also doing it, but they work in a little bit slightly different way because the product is also different. For us, a website would be a product. For IT, it could be a release of an analytical dashboard, for example. So just make those learnings yourself as well.
Thank you, Rasmus. Where would you say the biggest gap is, though, on your side? So great that you're doing so many things. Where do you feel that you've still got a major gap?
Customer feedback.
Customer feedback. Okay. So, and is that a function of the data, sources of data? Is it a function of the analytics capability? Is it a function of the quality of data? What's the actual barrier there? Yes, yes to all 3. Anything?
No, but it's also access. It's also fear a little bit about how can I just go and ask a doctor about what they think about this commercial asset? No, because it depends on the asset and branded, non-branded. Depends on the relationship, depends on local rules and guidelines. And so it's not as easy as I come from the high-tech industry. I just called up a CIO and said, hey, do you like this new messaging we have? It's not the same, right? We have different rules and regulations, and we have to respect that. And we should not hide behind just Google Analytics. We need to go and somehow get that feedback, and maybe you need add, customer advisory boards. Maybe you need different people like Mistral and Heider to come and comment on my new messaging. Maybe I'll get in trouble for that as well. But we need maybe think a little bit different on how we get customer feedback, because that's the essence of doing anything in terms of agility.
Yeah. Well, perhaps that's what these discussions are for. Fabian agrees with you, and in the chat window, Mr. Heider.
Just want to add on this feedback from the end user, the one that is using or consuming the content, whoever. So it is really important that we don't forget that we are serving someone at the end. And what we want is create value for this person, which is in a communication campaign, which is in delivering a program, which is in delivering consultancy. Again, I'm going to share my screen, but it's just, I love this, which is the value-based iteration, which means that instead of creating what Heider was telling, just a POC, we create little by little, but the value of what we are delivering after each iteration is the sum of each of the box. And why? And this is why we are going to have the end users happy from the beginning, because we begin small, but we already put value, and we increase this value by listening directly, by incubating with the end user, by increasing the value, listening to him in a short feedback value. And we take feedback in consideration from everywhere, and external client, internal client. MLR is my internal customer, and I want to satisfy my MLR. So I'm taking him from the early beginning, understanding his pain point, and trying to solve the pain point from the early beginning. And by incubating step by step, increasing the value of the final deliverable. So at the beginning, we have a minimum, then quickly we have a desirable, and finally we have the best dream product that we want to deliver. And this is, again, by managing people and making them active from the early beginning, and not forgetting in this conversation from the early beginning, the end user, all of our customer, for a better experience.
Wonderful. Thank you to those that are voting. Hopefully you saw the results of the first vote. The second one is going on at the moment. I had just over half of you vote, so I'll close that in a moment. We'll continue to gather this useful data going on. Hi, did you have any comment to what you
just maybe a closing point is that it's still, I mean, we are facing big organizations. The risk of regression is high. So it means that if you have a great change agent, he leaves the company, the risk of losing the momentum is quite high. So you want to make sure that you have some governance that can help sustain that momentum. And unfortunately, it's process-based. You have to talk the language of the company. And once you start talking, that language, it could be corporate SOPs, it could be whatever. Even if this is not fun, that's what people are trained for when they enter the organization. So slowly but surely, by talking the language of the organization and twist it a little bit here and there, then that helps the non-regression. It starts becoming, part of the landscape of the organization. That I would say, don't try to make it too fancy, too new, so that people will say, oh, this is a black box department doing funky stuff. And then when you leave, they kill the department. That is something that I wouldn't recommend. So you want to be part of the existing core functions and starting from there.
Fully agree.
Absolutely. Okay, we've only got 2 minutes left, so I'm going to have to ask you guys for a final leaving thought. And my question to you guys, I guess, is, in the spirit of agility, what is the priority you think that our industry should change? This is so Monday morning, back at our desks after a good weekend. Where do you think that as an industry we should be shifting our mindset to in order to be able to do what we've been talking about better as a primary action? I'm going to give you each, I'm afraid, only 10 or 20 seconds to answer that. So a bit of a challenge, but we'll see where we get to. Any thoughts? Who wants to go first? Probably neither of you want to go first, but got to ask anyway.
Call a friend.
Call a friend, yeah.
I can start. I can start. Give it a shot.
Be
Give it a
bold.
shot. I hope I think one thing we're doing trying to do Agile is to, when we meet Monday morning, we have a better understanding of our customers, what they have been doing, what they're doing, and we can then react rather than just looking at it 3 months after a campaign finishes.
So it's the real-time responsiveness that you would like to see change from a very honest assessment of what customers are interested in. Okay, great. Haida, Mistral, who wants to go next?
I'd say start with meetings. Meeting is the biggest waste of time that you know has been invented in organization. So if you in your next meeting you ask, do everyone understand why what is the contribution of every member in the team? I'm not speaking about brainstorming. I'm speaking about really meeting where we are supposed to exchange value. You start with a meeting and just try to be agile around meeting organization, and you'll see how much value you can extract from it. And if you put a rule that if someone has nothing to say, nothing to add, you just don't come. It's a natural rule, and you really build trust around that there is no fire for that person. You'll see that people will start actually coming prepared, building new actions, and that starts a journey toward more agility.
Thank you. Mistral, we've hit the hour, so I'm going to have to ask you to keep it super succinct. Final words.
Listen. Just one word, listen.
Wow, love it.
Listen to everyone.
Listen, okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to our audience for the wonderful multitasking you did in that last 10 minutes, answering 3 polls while we were all talking. Thank you very much for that. Hopefully the results have been interesting. Huge thank you to Erasmus and Haida for being willing to share their organizational experiences, be agile and open with the comments, of course, even proposing some new ideas there, which I really appreciate. And a special thank you to Mistral and her team at Viseven. What's the best way that people can get in touch with you, Mistral, if they want to follow up and have some of this? Just find you on LinkedIn or something more than that?
We are digital, so you can find us wherever you want. Just type Viseven and you will have the possibility.
Fantastic. Well, you guys have been an absolutely fantastic partner to work with, and it's really nice to see somebody that is not just talking about agility, but actually building a framework around making it easier for companies to take the steps in this area. So I appreciate that. Really appreciate every one of you. Thank you for a really stimulating conversation. Loving the back and forth and the chat window. All great to see. Let us know what you want for the future, and enjoy your weekend, everybody. Take a break. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.